All right, NAI football fans, welcome back to the Week 1 episode of the NAIAFBALL show. I'm your host today, Matt Schwarzler, and below me, smiling as always, I guarantee that's how he's smiling right now, Cory Thorpe, who is still cooking on that toaster oven of internet he's got over there. Cory, how are we doing after a very exciting Week 1 slate?
Oh my gosh, what a week one. We got so much more than we bargained for in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was just a delicious smorgasbord of football. Matt, let's get into it. Let's talk some football. This is gonna be fun.
I'm excited to talk some football, but I do have to pause you because I feel like we do have to mention our partners at Urban Edge Network, doing absolutely wonderful stuff this weekend. They had all of the big games on, hooked up to their stream, as the SID of Dakota Wesleyan for the Dakota Wesleyan Dak State game, which we will get to, can tell you went extremely well. They do a fantastic job of making sure everything's integrated and good to go, and just getting the NAI more accessible, because at the end of the day, when that happens, we all benefit, and we get to watch some exciting football, which we are about to talk about. So, yeah, probably shouldn't waste any more time, but thank you to Urban Edge Network for everything that you guys do. So, first on the docket for today is going to be Olivet Nazarene and Taylor in what was an absolute thriller in overtime. Olivet Nazarene gets the win 48-42 against the receiving votes Taylor in our poll, as you can see on the left side there for the Tigers. Quite a dominant passing performance from Christian Dew Reed, 19 for 29, 322 yards and 3 touchdowns. They also had an absolutely great receiver performance from Blake Lamb, who had 90 yards receiving on 5 catches for a touchdown. And not to mention, they were down by 21 points early in the third quarter, stormed back and won this game in overtime. Just absolutely insane stuff. Now, granted, Taylor did also play a really good game. You can see on the bottom corner there. They did have some issues, however, keeping Olivet Nazarene out of the backfield, which ultimately is not going to bode well the longer these games go and when you go into these overtime slogs. So what do you think of this one, Cory?
Yeah, I mean, Matt, I got to knock you here for a little bit. Taylor was your pick to click in the Mid-States Mid-East.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not exactly how you want to start a season there. Now, all credit to all of that. They played a fantastic game, and I did not expect to see Taylor lose like this to all of that. But here we are, and Coach Avant Mitchell was very high on his team off season, and honestly, Matt, now we kind of see why.
We definitely see why, and you're right. Like, there's a few takes I had preseason that are going to be disproven here later in the
Nice.
show, but this is the first of the bunch. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say Taylor had a bad game. I mean, you still managed to put up 42 points. It's just a matter of not being able to close out. Damon Hockett, a guy who I said would be an X factor for this team, for all intents and purposes, did have the big plays that you needed, but in the end of the day, only 6 completions for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns will definitely help you out. You probably need some more yards, though. 7 rushing attempts for 39 yards for Hockett as well. At the end of the day, you just got to be able to finish the game, and Olivet Nazarene was able to do that, and Taylor was not. So I think Taylor will still be around, but Olivet Nazarene making a case for maybe that number 2 spot on their side of the conference behind Indiana Wesleyan. But that's another one that we will get to. We have a lot of these matchups. Everything kind of intertwines with each other today. But before we get to that one, we got to mention Lindsey Wilson, I think, Cory, because my goodness, this was surprising, if anything. That's probably putting it lightly. I mean, our preseason 12th ranked team absolutely dominated by Lindsey Wilson, the Blue Raiders. Prior Lamb going 15 for 27, 333 yards, lucky threes there for 4 touchdowns, and even with the 2 turnovers, it didn't quite matter because he was hooked up with Sherrard all day long. 5 catches for 215 yards and 3 touchdowns. That will certainly get it done for you through the air there. Texas Wesleyan, Carson Rogers having an okay day, 20 for 33, 161 yards, and Ronnie Schneider catching 4 passes for 64 yards. But you kind of see there at the bottom for Texas Wesleyan, only 25% on 3rd and 4th down, not a recipe for success. And truly, like, Lindsey Wilson from whistle to whistle had this game under control. It felt like we were watching the Lindsey Wilson teams of old. So, very surprising, Cory. I'm curious to hear what you think here.
How much does Texas Wesleyan, and I said this Saturday morning when I reviewed this game with Victory Sports Net's Jason Danley on the Clash of the Week presented by Urban Edge and Heart of America Conference. Boy, that's a long name. How much does Texas Wesleyan miss the combination of Ernie Caesar and AJ Bob? Like, you see Schneider has a decent performance, but the Rams had no rushing game to speak of. And you can see that on 3rd and 4th down conversions. Those are 3rd and 4th down conversions. You can see Ernie Caesar picking up 2 or 3 extra of. But, look, the fact that this wasn't a close game at all, my flabbers were gasted. Kaya Sherrard with 250 yards receiving that's mind-blowing against a defense that was fairly decent last year and, was good enough to make it to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised, but then again, we were pretty high on Lindsey Wilson going into the season, so I feel like I didn't expect it to be this much of a blowout. I expected them to be able to tangle deep into the game. Did not expect a 35-point win.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with this. The hosting team of the national championship's definitely going to have the road to toe if they want to get it to that game this year to play in front of a home crowd. Especially after a loss like that, you're going to have to pick yourself back up and get back to it because Texas Wesleyan's path doesn't get much easier from here, unfortunately. But yeah, Lindsey Wilson, what a force to be reckoned with. Excited to see how they carry this momentum into the rest of the season, especially with people kind of sleeping on him before the season, I felt like. So I'm excited to see the Blue Raiders back in action. Pryor Lamb, I think, is poised for a very, very good season. Now, next on the docket, talking about me being wrong, we'll talk about Montana Tech and Montana Western, my preseason national champion pick. Look,
it's really, really hard to win when you allow one guy to win special teams by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And Levi Torgerson did that. My guy had a punt return and a kick return touchdown in the first half. It felt like in the first quarter, if I remember correctly, that he had both of those. Had a passing touchdown. And yes, did Montana Western try to pull a comeback in the second half? Yeah, they did. But you dug yourself too deep of a hole.
Yeah, and I think the scoreboard, just looking at the scorecard here, like that won't tell you the whole story. Montana Western was down 21-0, like 24-0 at one point, very early on in this game. Montana Tech came out firing on all cylinders, and Butte is just absolutely a place I would not want to play ever, if that reaffirmed it ever. And I'm sure the Montana Tech fans take great pride in that. But yeah, Torgerson, even without a special teams contributions, you look at their production on offense going 53.85% on 3rd and 4th downs, almost doubling the percentage that Montana Western had. That'll set you up for success, and it showed. Montana Tech is definitely forced to be trifled with. I think they took my note of Montana Western being a cut above the rest pretty personally, because they certainly played like they had something to prove. And this is a team I do not want to be in the way of if I'm looking down my schedule right now. I think Palandri still had a great day, 23 for 33, 285 yards and 3 touchdowns. Got it done with a rushing touchdown as well, but just not able to keep up with the pace that Montana Tech started the game on. I'm going to be really curious to see how Montana Western can bounce back here, especially because, with the playoff format, there's very easily a path for them to still make the postseason and make the playoff and go on a run. But you definitely have a lot to sort through on your way to get there. This game was, an early test for you, and you got to go back to the drawing board with a few of these things. So curious to see what this means for both teams as they kind of split in the road here and go their separate ways for the rest of the year. But yeah, another one that was just absolutely incredible. And not to mention the next game we're going to talk about, Kaiser versus Indiana Wesleyan, another super close one. Kaiser and Indiana Wesleyan, we both had our questions about both of these teams. I think even in a loss, Indiana Wesleyan looked really good, but Kaiser, they definitely deserved more of a benefit of the doubt than we gave them going into this season. Shea Spencer going 28 for 41, 265 yards and a touchdown. 2 picks certainly won't help you out, but when your running back goes for, 19 carries, 140 yards and 4 touchdowns, that'll certainly help you out. Jaden Miller having an absolutely monster day on the ground, not to mention going 54.55% on 3rd and 4th downs. Indiana Wesleyan also, had some guys show out. Braxton Myers had a great day through the air, catching passes from Mr. Loathe, but 19 for 42, definitely need a higher clip to keep up with Kaiser's offense. But this one came down to the wire. It definitely met expectations. So, Cory, what'd you think of this one?
This one was, we got some questions answered. We got the questions answered whether Indiana Wesleyan will be able to have any offense whatsoever. The answer is yes. Answer is also it might still need some work with 19 of 42, below 50% percentage is not what you want to see out of Arjun Lothie. We still haven't quite yet figured out if Kaiser's got a defense. I'm still holding both of these teams in like a high level tint of suspicion because of we just haven't seen them against anyone else. And so we had the stoppable force meets the movable object. And right then in that moment, Kaiser was able to have a little bit more offense.
Yeah.
Kaiser and Indiana Wesleyan get flipped in my poll just because of the outcome. But I still have my questions about both of them, very similar to the fact that I still have questions about Marion after giving it up to a top 15 D2 squad. There's still a lot of questions about a ton of these teams just because you haven't seen multiple cracks at bat.
For sure. I think this was a good test for both these teams early, though. I'm curious to see how this outcome might affect their playoff contention down the line. I know the committee doesn't always weigh these early games as closely as we'd think, but if these are 2 top teams vying for an at-large or a full-on playoff spot, I don't know, could come down to the wire there. So curious to see if Kaiser can keep it up and if Indiana Wesleyan is going to keep chugging along at their current pace. Excited to see what happens after the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the aftermath? No. What's that term called with radiation? Fallout. That's what I'm thinking of.
There
Fallout.
we go. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm definitely smart and graduated college, guys. Don't worry. But you know who else is smart? Reinhardt. Reinhardt was extremely smart because they had a great showing against Florida Memorial. Now, I will also sing the praises of Florida Memorial, able to keep pace offensively. I know we talked about this team kind of being on the come-up this year, and while Reinhardt was definitely my pick to win this game, I think Florida Memorial showed that they can fight. But all that being said, Reinhardt ultimately comes out on top. Taylor Jackson at the quarterback position going to 15 for 24, 247 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Nigel Osborne averaging, that's over 10 yards a carry on the ground. 10 attempts for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you can't stop the run game, it's easy to see why Florida Memorial fell behind here, and not to mention the time of possession, having almost over 10 more minutes with the ball than Florida Memorial did. I was really impressed with Reinhardt here.
I'm pretty sure looking at this that I switched the running backs because Jacques Colbert, I'm pretty sure, plays for Reinhardt.
Oof.
That's an L on my part, but still, it does come down to it. Florida Memorial was able to stay in Reinhardt's backfield. They were able to get turnovers. Reinhardt still had time of possession, and Reinhardt still had a 14-point lead.
Yeah.
So this gives me also the fact that they had a quarterback go for almost 250 is not something we got to see terribly often last year. It gives me a lot of hope for the Eagles, and a little bit of hope for Florida Memorial. I think this is it's a win for both teams how they play.
Absolutely. Yep. I have to agree there. And especially with Reinhardt trying to sneak back into that top elite position that they've been in the NAIA before. This was definitely a good first step for them, I think, in that direction. So, good things for both these teams to take away. But another game, actually, kind of in the general vicinity of this one, I guess, right? Geographically, that's decently close. That will be Campbellsville and St. Francis, Indiana. Talk about sleeper game of the week. We talked about having this one on a third monitor. This probably could have been your main screen, to be honest with you. 19 and 25 in our poll going at it with a 3-point victory, 31 to 28 for Campbellsville. Jet Engel going at a high clip, 20 for 41, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. And then Trey Bass getting it done not just on the ground with 16 carries, 75 yards, and a touchdown, but also 2 receptions for 18 yards and a touchdown. Their defense, though, I think was what really stood out to me in this game. 3 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, interception, and 6 pass breakups. Will certainly get it done when you're facing a quarterback like Joshua Kolka. Heading into the season, he had one of the highest completion percentages in the entire NAIA. And, he's at a 37 of 52 clip, which still isn't bad, but is certainly below where he'd like to be there. 389 yards will certainly get it done to keep pace, though, with 2 touchdowns there. And Adam Smith, also need to mention for USF, 10 catches for 173 yards, 17.3 yards a catch, Cory. That's a deep threat right there. But like we mentioned with the defensive production of Campbellsville, USF ultimately going 35% on 3rd and 4th down definitely didn't help their case here. But again, this is another game where I just feel like there's so many good things for both teams in this one.
The interesting thing about this is that Campbellsville got out to a pretty hefty lead. St. Francis comes back late and makes it a game. Campbellsville was able to close it out. So, honestly, there were some people that I saw that would pick Campbellsville for their Mid-South champion. If they're able to put together 4 quarters like this, or like their first half was, and do 4 quarters of that, it's a distinct possibility. But I still say that these are 2 sleeper. This was a sleeper game with 2 sleeper teams. So I don't feel like anyone's talking about either of these guys, and I think you're going to still see St. Francis vie for that Midwest title.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, this result, they lost, but that solidifies it for me. They went toe-to-toe with an extremely underrated Campbellsville team that I think could push for the top 15 this season with the way that they pulled out this win. Really exciting stuff in this one. I just can't stop gushing about all these teams because, there's so much fun stuff to talk about after the first week of competition. But you want to talk about fun? How about our quick little top 3 matchup that ended up being a 4-point contest, absolutely delivering in the category of watchability and excitement. Jackson Dooley for Benedictine getting it done to defeat Morningside 38-34 on a 20 of 37 clip. 280 yards, 4 total touchdowns, 3 of those through the air, and a rushing touchdown, and a +3 turnover differential for Benedictine will be pretty much the deciding factor for you. I mean, these were two juggernauts trading blows the entire game, but we'll touch on it a bit later. But I think Benedictine's defense getting a few turnovers really was the tipping point in this game for them.
Matt, this was one of those games, and Jason Danley, who hosted the pregame show with me, which, by the way, was a lot of fun. I'll circle back to that later. Made a comment mid-game, and I think he's got a point. He said, "This is one of those games where you just get entranced by the actual football being played on the field, and you forget the score." You forget what the time is, and you're just getting entranced by the play on the field and just how good and high level it was. He's 100% right. You look up and half a quarter's gone.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a riveting game. There were times where I thought that Morningside was going to pull away. They had it in the palm of their hand to be able to just pull the game out from under Benedictine. Every single time Benedictine comes back with a pick or a fumble recovery and is just able to reel them back in, and they're able to, in the fourth quarter, with under a minute left, get that final score. We've got it posted up on our Instagram page of the quarterback sneak from Jackson Dooley to go ahead. But the play from the defense, the possession before 3 and out, to silence the Morningside offense was absolutely clutch. And the atmosphere in Atchison was absolutely unreal. I am sure that similar atmospheres happen all across the nation, but for me, this was absolutely top tier. There's not many times where I've seen a home crowd be that large. Not even counting the visiting crowd. Yeah, there were a lot of Morningside fans there.
I was going to say Morningside travels very well, so that's kind of wild to hear.
But there were a lot of home fans. Now, in non-game stuff, thank you so much to UEN, the Heart of America, Nick Rule, the folks there, in creating this Clash of the Week pregame show where we could go out and have fun and interview everybody and their brother, and really do this up right, college game day style, and really set the stage for an amazing game. One, it was a heck of a lot of fun to do that pregame show. It went extremely smoothly. The production crew was top notch. We had an LED wall behind us, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Everything was top notch and first class, and I cannot wait to, like we said with Commissioner Rule, a rising tide lifts all boats, and if the other conferences are able to kind of trade off that Clash of the Week and it not just be the Heart, that would be amazing. Obviously, the Heart's got it next week for reasons we will get to shortly. But that was a whale of a lot of fun, and something that I personally have been wanting to try to figure out how to pull off something like that. Mm-hmm. Since we started in 2018. That has been one of our long-term goals, and the Heart is out there getting it done, and I implore any of the other conferences out there, get in touch with them and say, hey, we'd love to figure out how you did that and work with you so that if we've got a better matchup, you send it over here, yada, 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 all that stuff, because that's so good for the league to broadcast that sort of product.
Yeah, absolutely. Urban Edge, again, just cannot sing their praises enough. A wonderful job. And not to mention, Corey, you did a good job putting your Lee Corso on up there. I saw some of it. So good on you for the college game day.
They wouldn't let me wear the mascot head for some reason.
Oh, weird. I don't look, man. I guess one step at a time, right?
I was so ready to put that Raven head on, dude.
Give me the Ravens, but yeah, I mean it was entirely deserved. Benedictine looked fantastic, and pretty solidified as the 1/2 after week 1, I'd say, after a performance like that. Now, another team that had a pretty good performance was Georgetown against the receiving votes Pikeville. Now Pikeville, if you will recall, kind of another team we talked about as being a sleeper, and that's kind of the role they've fulfilled recently. And they went toe-to-toe with Georgetown for a little bit, but when Garrick Slunaker is going 15 for 27 for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns, that efficient, we talked about him being efficient, being super important for Georgetown this year, and it helps when Clayton Davis, as your main target, is having crazy stat lines of 11 receptions for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the defense that we have come to expect with Georgetown every single season absolutely showed up with a sack, 5 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, 2 picks in 6 pass breakups. The air it out system and the air it out style of Pikeville in this game, Xavier Malone, 39 for 58, 407 yards, a touchdown, and interception. Not quite able to get it done. Going under 40% on 3rd and 4th down certainly won't help. Also worth a shout, Jordan Williams, 12 catches for 107 yards. Definitely didn't go unnoticed. But this was Georgetown being Georgetown, I thought, Corey.
Look, if you can have an offense for Georgetown that is balanced, that's not something that they've had the last couple of years. If you can find a passing game, and it certainly looks like they have, this Georgetown team is going to be very difficult to unseat come November. That's if this pretends of anything down the line, that Georgetown Campbellsville game is going to be absolute must-see TV.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not to mention too that like Pikeville is going to have a good year this year. Like all signs point to it. They're a good football team. This was just Georgetown being a better football team. And there's no shame in that. But it just feels like we're seeing Georgetown kick it into the gear with their offense. You see how productive this team can be and how consistent they can be and how oppressive it can feel to play this team when they're firing on all cylinders like that. Now, something, perhaps not quite the NAIA specific matchup we have come to expect, but Weber beating FCS Stetson over the weekend, 31-21.
Not like, this isn't like Indiana Wesleyan beating Butler.
Correct.
Or some such.
Yes.
This is Weber International in Babson Park, Florida, unranked.
Didn't get a vote in our media poll, by the way. Like, not on the radar, really, for this one.
Correct. What in tarnation? Did not see this coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like it is important to have the context of Stetson being a Pioneer League team, but this is still a Division 1. This is considered a Division 1 program. That is a fact. Absolute fact. Truth of the matter. Weber went in there and beat an FCS team that, might I add, outgained them by almost a couple hundred yards on offense. Weber stepped up to the plate here.
I think you're going to see it even more clearly after this weekend because Stetson's next opponent is Warner.
Oh.
And the difference, I'm afraid, is going to be stark.
Yeah. Well, especially after, if you're on Stetson's sideline after losing to Weber, I can guarantee you.
That's Mike Jasper. That's Bethel's head coach from last year.
Yeah,
That's an NAIA guy.
definitely gonna have some interesting chats in the locker room after practice, that sort of thing this week. After a loss like that, but yeah, Weber just absolutely. I can't really fathom it, to be honest with you. I'm curious to see now how Weber takes this win for the rest of their season. I feel like I need to see them against an NAIA opponent to see truly where they're at, because the Pioneer League teams can sometimes be so up in the air. It's not always an accurate look at what an NAIA team may or may not be capable of. But again, like you said, this is Jasper, a guy who is at Stetson who knows the NAIA. So, definitely need to be taken into consideration. The Weber defense, though, with +3 turnover differential and holding Stetson under 37% on third and fourth down, will certainly get it done. Super exciting stuff for Weber. Like I said, man, you got to ride this momentum, because this is a big win for your program, and you want to talk about taking the next step up. This is a great way to set yourself up to do that. So, got to shout out Weber there for that performance. But I got one more shout out here, Cory. Would you like to take a guess of who's getting this shout out?
It would help if I unmuted myself. I bet it's going to be Dak West.
Oh, you bet it's going to be Dak West. Dakota Wesleyan getting it done against Dakota State to reclaim the Chamber of Commerce Traveling Trophy in Mitchell, South Dakota. For those that don't know, I am the SID at Dakota Wesleyan, so I was there for this game.
How in tarnation, man?
Yeah, I know, right? But it was my first time working a football game as an SID. The last school I worked at didn't have football, so super fun times for me. It was kind of hard to focus on the game sometimes, but when you return the opening kick return for a 95-yard touchdown, Steven Christian, that'll certainly have my attention. Not to mention the supposedly neutral party of the SID definitely got a bit excited in the press box when that happened. So hate to out myself like that, but I have to mention it because it's not very often that Dakota Wesleyan is housing kicks like that, as somebody who played for this team not that long ago. Now, granted, offensively, Dakota Wesleyan still has some question marks, I would say. The final tally came out to 70 total yards of offense. But the fact that your defense is able to keep you in it, your special teams contribute, preventing Dakota State from converting on any of their 3 field goal attempts, including the final 16-yard attempt when the ball was placed on the 1-yard line from the left hash that doinks off of the left upright with 30 seconds left. I mean, I gotta tip my cap to the defense there. Jovan Overshield, also not mentioned on the graphic here, but had 15 tackles on the day. Number 44 getting it done. And that's not to say that Dakota State, wasn't efficient in their own right. They found their rhythm a couple times in this game, but it was a true defensive battle. Dakota Wesleyan coming out on top by 2 points and an absolute thriller. That's how we get it done in Mitchell, fellas. So excited to see that one in person. So that has Cory's giggling at me because I'm just trying not to be a homer here. But
you are, and it's okay.
Yeah. Look, I have to. It's the Dakota State game, okay? Now I will give Dakota State their flowers. That defense is going to be very good when they play some of these other Frontier opponents. I'm excited to see how that matchup goes for them. But I would be lying if I didn't say I'm really excited that I'm on this side of the fence for this contest. So, but who's never on the opposite side of the fence to us? That would be our partners at AdCraft. So we'll take a break while we show you what AdCraft can do for you.
So you want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business. That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game. Raise funds for your team or get merch to your employees and patrons. Contact AdCraft today, and let's bring your merch to life.
And that's exactly what they do, Corey. AdCraft is just the absolute best of the bunch when it comes to setting up web stores and getting fans and players and coaches all of the apparel that you need to be swagged out so you can worry about, running game day and doing all of the football stuff that you want to do. Because let's face it, if you're a football coach, you probably don't like dealing with that side of stuff anyways. So let AdCraft handle it for you. They are NAI born and bred. We've been working with them for years now, and there is a reason why. So make sure to go check them out. But Corey, after a week like that, such an exciting, high-powered week of football, how does it shake up the top 25? I guess we should probably find out.
It's gonna shake it.
It's going to shake it a little bit. We're going to shake it a little bit. So, looking at this top 25, you can see right off the bat Kaiser jumping way up to number 3. And also, I got to shout out here the Friends Falcons. Not on our radar for what to watch for. And that's because they absolutely dominated their opponent 73-14. Averaged 10.6 yards a carry and had 9 rushing touchdowns and 610 rushing yards as a team. That might be the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. The Friends Falcons definitely deserving of that number 6 spot. St. Thomas also being in the top 5. Montana Tech not quite jumping up like I would have thought after the win over Montana Western, but still at a very respectable 7th place. Indiana Wesleyan still in the top 10 after their exciting loss, and Northwestern jumps into the top 10 as well. Campbellsville working up to that 15 spot like I talked about earlier, them being in that echelon. Just a few other teams to note here. You see Marion not really dropping that far after their loss to UIndy. Granted, they were outplayed by UIndy, but UIndy's a very good Division II team, so I'm definitely more curious to see how Marion looks against their NAIA peers there. Southern Oregon in at 19. Evangel at 20. I'm going to grandstand a tiny bit here. I still feel like we're underselling Evangel, man. I really feel like we are. They looked really good this weekend. So hopefully my fellow media poll voters can hop on the bandwagon with me there on that one. But Texas Wesleyan still barely holding on to top 25 spot after their loss to Lindsey Wilson. And Lindsey Wilson checks in at 13. Corey, what do we see here? What do we like? What do we not like?
Man, well, first off, for some of our friends who aren't watching as they do this, no shame, but Grandview at number 1, no change. Benedictine up 1 to number 2. Kaiser up 3 to number 3. I feel that is fair given what they did on Saturday for both of those teams. Honestly, we had Kaiser at 6, and we have Kaiser at 3. That feels like a good spot. Morningside down to number 4. I still like the fact that they're in the top 5. They were in that game until the very last whistle. No shade there. St. Thomas up 2 to number 6 after having a bye week to start the season. You already talked about Friends up 2, Montana Tech up 3 after that big win. Indiana Wesleyan, the big loser in the top 10, down 4. Northwestern and Georgetown 9 and 10, no change. Montana Western drops 6 spots to 11. Baker up 1 after being idle at number 12. Lindsey Wilson checking in, a new team at 13. You mentioned them. Southwestern up 1 to 14. Campbellsville up 4 to number 15. You mentioned them being a top 15 team earlier, Matt. Well, they are. Ottawa of Arizona up 2 after being idle themselves. Marion down 3 after a loss. Not terrible given who it was. Dort idle but up 1. Southern Oregon, who blanks Simpson, up 2. Evangel up 4. I feel like they got remembered a little more in the poll this week, and they I still think they're a little underbought. They're a little oversold. I think that'll rectify itself. It might just take a few weeks. Mid-America Nazarene, 1 their game, but are down 4 spots. Maybe that's a little bit of them not passing the eye test as well as maybe they could have.
Yeah.
Dickinson State also the victims in the very same way, because they definitely struggled against Valley City. They're down 6 despite beating them by 2 scores. Southeastern holds serve at 23. Concordia down 2, being idle, and Texas Wesleyan, the biggest loser, down 13 spots at number 25. Some of our receiving votes: Carroll, Reinhardt, McPherson, U-Pike, St. Francis falls out. Bethel of Tennessee, Kansas Wesleyan, Graceland, and with a single solitary point down here at the bottom, Weber.
Nice. Yeah, I'm still a bit hesitant to pull the trigger on Weber, just because, like I said earlier, I want to see them play against an NAIA team kind of at their caliber that I have more of a defined range of skill for. But I think also worth mentioning was Southwestern. In there at 14, I know we had our doubts preseason with them, but they won 61-7 in their opening contest. They thrashed the Threshers. Not to mention, Cory, it was also Cowboy and Cowgirl night for the Mound Builders. I mean, it doesn't get much more exciting than that. Yeehaw indeed. Definitely a team to keep an eye on after an opening performance like that. So, it's enough about polls. I'm sure we'll be arguing all week with all of you lovely people on Twitter about them and in the Discord, so make sure you're following us and plugged in there. But we also have to give a shout out to these wonderful graphics made by Connor Darnell Designs. Thank you for finally following me on Twitter, even though I wasn't following Connor, so it's really my fault. But it's okay, because he does absolutely wonderful work. You see all of the amazing stuff that he does, all of the cool graphics he makes for us. Makes our lives easier so we can focus on the production. And not to mention, he's better than either of us even have a fraction of ability to do this kind of stuff. So if you want, working on things like schedules or graphics for records, anything of that sort, make sure to reach out to Connor Darnell. He can also get you some pretty cool bag tags. So definitely ask him about that. And speaking of these graphics, we have some pretty cool ones to show off, because it's time, Cory, to talk about our NAIAFBALL Players of the Week. Offensively, first, Sherrard, we mentioned it earlier, but when you have 200 plus yards and 3/5 of your catches are in the end zone, kind of hard to ignore that. I mean, just an absolutely dominating performance from the Blue Raiders, like we said earlier. And Sherrard is definitely going to be a key piece of this team going forward. Solidified himself as that top target for the Blue Raiders. And Cory, I can't help but think we're going to be seeing a lot of this guy this season.
He might be the new Gerald Monroe. We'll see. Kaya Sherrard, I had to ask. Didn't want to screw it up. But man, in as much as the defense really came to play for Lindsey Wilson, the part that really stood out to me about that game against Tex West was their ability to score. That has been lacking in the last couple of seasons. They've struggled at times to put points up on the board, especially in bunches. I think they found the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see what this guy can do. He's already almost a fourth of the way to 1,000 yards receiving, and he's played a single game. So I can imagine we'll see some really fun numbers from this guy the rest of the way. Now on the defensive side, I feel like we have to give a shout here. We have to give a shout here to Central Methodist and the Eagles. Travion Harrell Jr. with 9 tackles, a sack, 3 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, and an interception. This guy was absolutely all over the field for the Eagles this weekend.
When you notch a number in every single category, including both a forced fumble and an interception, you're probably going to get Player of the Week. I mean, it's one of those things. That's called putting your stamp on the game and making yourself a problem for the opposing offensive coordinator. CMU doesn't always get a ton of love from this or really any outlet, but there's a reason I don't just go through the box scores for the top 25, and it's to find gems like this. CMU had it this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you dig into it every week, you'd be able to find a guy like this on a team that doesn't really get talked about a lot, like you mentioned with CMU. So it's always cool to be able to pick out these guys kind of from the pack. And while we love talking about our top 25 football, gotta show some love to the guys who are still grinding away, even if they're not receiving votes in the polls. So, with that being said, we should also mention our partners at the Headset app, doing absolutely wonderful things, not just for the quality of communication between you and your coaches on game day, but also it makes your setup a lot cheaper because no longer do you have to buy multiple $100 headsets that probably will get chucked and broken at multiple points in the season, not to mention losing batteries, getting all that stuff set up, making sure the signals work. It's really a giant hassle. And while I'm sure there are plenty of graduate assistants out there who know the ins and outs of that, why not just make your life infinitely easier with the Headset app? Just connect it to your phone. They have a bunch of private radio channels for you and your team to be able to communicate easily on your phone, which is something you're likely to not throw because you need that to function nowadays. So yeah, make sure to check them out. And not to mention, they are also the presenting partner of this week's Play Call of the Week. We had alluded to it earlier in the Benedictine and Morningside game defensively. Let's just take a look at this clip real quick.
Gun set again for Chevalier. Man in motion to the near side. Fakes the handoff to Huff. Fires a rocket across the middle. It's intercepted. Bringing it back the other way for BC and shoved out of bounds near the 50-yard line.
You know, Cory, we talked about it when we talked about this game earlier, turnovers being the big difference for Benedictine in this contest. I think this play was a perfect example of it. It is early in the game at the end of the first quarter, but it's super important to note that if Morningside's driving right here, and if they score on this possession, they go up 2 scores, and who knows how that changes the outcome of the game with how everything turned out, with it being a 4-point contest. Being able to sit in your zone, read the play in front of you, read who's crossing, and make a play downhill there. Just absolutely phenomenal stuff from the Benedictine defense. Morningside is not used to having that kind of pushback when they're going down the field. So it just felt really, really good play calling all around from Benedictine's defensive staff. But this play specifically, I think the interception really shows you how impressive they were against a very high-powered Morningside offense. So now
This is one of the ones where I had said every time it looked like Morningside was about to take the game into their hand, Benedictine would do something like this and would just pull it back in and reel them back in. That not only was that a good interception, stalking across the middle there, but that's a good return. I mean, that was a good 20-yard return that flips the field and forces the quick change defense to only have half of the field to operate on.
Yeah, the quick change and just the fact that you're able to capitalize on an opportunity like that proves why Benedictine won the game the fashion they did. So good stuff to the Benedictine staff. We just had to shout that out. But now, I think that's the last of it for week 1, which means we get to look ahead to week 2, if my slideshow will cooperate here. So obviously, we don't have quite the gigantic slate that we had last week, but you'll see listed there, we have our number 1 and number 2 teams squaring off in the second week of the season. I think that warrants there being fewer games on this what to watch list because that is absurd. Super excited to see how that one goes. It's going to be interesting to see if Grandview, without a week of competition under their belt, if that's going to hurt them or not against a very, very, very good Benedictine team. Another one we're going to be keeping our eyes on, Campbellsville, 15th ranked, feel like a sleeper team against the FCS champions of Weber. Really curious to see how this matchup's going to go. I think we're going to learn a lot about Weber in that contest. And also Montana Tech doesn't have it much easier after beating Montana Western, as they will face off against the Fighting Saints of Carroll in what will probably end up being Frontier Conference madness, because that's just how it always goes. Cory, what are you looking for in these ones?
There's a whole lot of questions here that I've got. One, will Benedictine be able to get right back up and play an incredibly high-level opponent? Two, how freaking lucky is the Heart of America that they get to host the obvious clash of the week again. And have it and right. They're going to do it every week, but this time it's again obviously the best game in the nation by a wide margin.
Yep.
Grandview has Jackson Waring coming back, which should be enough to strike fear into everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Was Morningside elite? Yes. But Zach Chevalier doesn't run a whole lot. Jackson Waring will.
Yeah. I was there last year to watch it in person when he did exactly that against what we thought was a extremely up to the challenge Kaiser team. I watched it with my own two eyes. Absolutely dominated, the reigning player of the year. I'm super excited for that contest, I'll tell you that much, man. But yeah, it's going to be another really, really fun week of NAI football. And we are super excited to be here talking about it with all of you guys. So we're super pumped, man. First week of the season went really well. Obviously, our live setup still isn't exactly what we'd like it to be, but I think all things considered, Cory, this has been one of the more exciting starts to the NAIA season that we've had, not just from a games perspective, but what we've been able to do with our wonderful partners like Urban Edge, AdCraft, and the Headset app. Super pumped to continue rolling here in the 2025 season. And not just our wonderful sponsors, but the other people who make this show possible are our beautiful, wonderful, perfect patrons. You can scan the QR code on your screen or go to patreon.com/NAIFBall to join the Patreon, get exclusive access to all of the wonderful stuff that we have for you guys this year, and join in on the conversation. You can join for as little as $1 a month, and truthfully, these are the people that help us do all of the cool stuff that we are able to do. And plus, you get your name read by me or Cory, which is certainly enough for your $1 a month. So we would like to take a moment to thank our patrons, who are DSU Cohn, Roger Meyer, Jeremy Vobble, Fred Christensen, Ace Wellen, Marty Siebel, Kyle Gregory, Tyler Pierce, Justin Hoffman, Steve Speakman, Brian Shake, Julianne Shager, Nate Sotebeer, Stephen Cutler, Julie Lout, Tim Burrow, Nathan Moore, Ryan, Jason Crawford, Todd Nix, Sean Chamberlain, Zach Lance, Casey Wilson, Carol C. Suggs, Chris, Derek Lars, Jason Garland, Christopher Zwiener, Joey Breckel, Coca Nicholas, and Swede Nation. I almost tripped up on Coca's name again like I did last week, but we call that improvement, Cory. We're making it work.
You dang right. You got it done. Listen,
Yes,
it's going to be another great week.
Mhm.
There's some sneaky good matchups, and I feel like we're not done with the upsets. There's gonna be someone that gets upset. Maybe it's one of the teams that didn't play. I don't know.
Look, all I'm saying, Cory, Dakota Wesleyan won with 70 yards of offense, and they played Dort this week. If they hit triple digits, it's scary hours, man. I'm telling you.
Look, man, you can Yeah, I mean, Dort's got a lot coming back, but we don't know. We don't know for sure
Mm-hmm.
what they are.
It's true. So, with that, I'm looking through live chat to see if there's anything we have missed, but I think we have a relatively quiet audience tonight, unless you see otherwise, Corey. So, yeah.
Looks that way to me.
On that note, we thank you for tuning in. Dude, it feels so good to be rolling with the live shows again. This is just what it's all about. This is the fun part, man. this is the best of it. So, yeah, make sure that you're keeping up with us on YouTube, on the Urban Edge Network app, which is where you can also see us during the season for our live shows. And also make sure to follow us on Twitter. Look at the Patreon. See all of the cool stuff we're doing and how coverage of NAIA football this year is expanding. It really is. It feels like we are kind of at the tipping point of this being a really big deal, and we are super stoked to be at the forefront of that. So, Corey, any final thoughts for our wonderful viewing audience?
Just want to remind everyone, just to kind of go off of what Matt said, that the NAIA got mentioned on College Game Day.
It's true.
It comes a little full circle with a little segment called Real or Not Real Name, and Rocky Mountain's Indiana Jones getting picked up there. So look at us. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
The NAIA getting mentioned on College Game Day.
Have you ever seen the Leonardo DiCaprio gif where he's sitting in the chair and he like snaps and is pointing at his TV?
Yeah, he's got the cigarette in his hand. And
I cannot tell you, at 8:30 in the morning watching on my computer, I did the exact same thing when he said that. Not even when they said it, when they showed the screen and I saw that Indiana Jones was up there, I was like, wait, is that the Rocky Mountain guy? And I'm like, oh my God, it's the Rocky Mountain guy. And sure enough, at the end of the segment, they mentioned it. Rocky Mountain College, NAIA, by name. It was a wonderful thing. So we're taking over, man. We're taking over. I'm telling you. So, yeah, it's really cool to see that recognition being had. So, I think that's all we got for today. So until next time, make sure to follow along as we trek through the rest of the season. We still have a long way to go and a lot of football to get through. So stick with us as we continue on. And as always, from me, Matt Schwarzler, and my compadre, Corey Thorpe, we will bid you adieu. And we'll see you all on the Twitter feeds. Have a good evening, you guys.